Geht mir Shabbos
Pesach is upon us, but really just to stay true to our motive here of creating this was to create conversation around how to create conversation and how to find the meaning within things. And I thought the Pesach was a great opportunity to use some of the tools and the tips that we've learned during the year and apply them and take new tools and tips that we can learn on Pesach and apply those to the rest of the year, to our Shabbos tables, to our chinuch, to our children, to ourselves. So I thought Pesach was a great opportunity to do that. This is not the vertlach that we're going to say at the Seder table. That's not the point of this one. This one is what is the goal of the Pesach Seder?
All the vertlach that you say at the Pesach Seder have to have a purpose. They have to have a context. And if your Seder doesn't have a context, then it could be a beautiful thing and fun and awesome, and everybody sings their songs and everything. But you wouldn't be able to turn to somebody from the Seder and say to them, what did you walk away with? They'll tell you a vart that they walked away with. They'll tell you some idea that was interesting to them, but an overall theme. So then that they wouldn't be able to say, and that's what you have to pick. And there's many themes that you can pick to make a successful around the Seder table. But it's
right, and you can switch from year to year as you pick your. Not the goal of what is the Seder and the words and the things in the Seder, but the goal of where are you going to get tonight or in or these nights, where are you going to get can change. Is it a focus on Emunah? Is it a focus on Hashgacha Pratis? Is it a focus on X, Y, and Z? Many different ideas, which I think we've gone, in the past I've seen, but to pick a goal and to get there. So that's sort of one idea I really want to break open with you specifically, and the other is...
Yes, I think that stage one is just to quickly identify a few of the themes that you can take all of the vertlach, the paragraphs, all of the words, everything you're doing, and make it thematic under that heading. One of them is, like you mentioned, Emunah. One of them is Hashgacha, and you can fit everything into Hashgacha. Next week we'll talk more about that, of how you can take one paragraph and you can explain why it's in the Haggadah in 10 different ways. Under that heading and under that theme. Another great, very important theme to focus on your Seder is freedom, the concept of freedom. That's like a night's worth of work. That's a lifetime's worth of work. But of identifying freedom, especially if you have teenagers and you have thinking young adults, freedom is a very important issue on Pesach, and to focus on what freedom is. For me, the step you take out, also Gullus, the difference between Gullus and Geula, and what Gullus life looks like and what Geula life looks like, and how do you make that transition from Gullus to Geula. And in that, you can start your Seder. I was learning with somebody today, Haggadah, and clearly he'd never even considered this, but that the opening theme from the Kadesh Urchatz until Avadim Hayinu was just setting a stage to bring us into Gullus, that we can start with Ginai, Maschel B'Gnus, and then from there start launching into marching towards Geula. And these are, you have to identify your theme. You have to let it be known. You can't be subtle about it. You can't be something expecting people are going to pick this up. Tell them sort of where you're going. But when you do, so then you can maximize your impact. You can reach the place that we say Chayav Adam Liras Atzmo, a person has to see himself as if he left Mitzrayim. That has to be your experience. You've got to feel like you've left something, like you have the tools now to leave something behind.
Right, when you understand what it is that you're leaving and how relevant it is today too. Yeah,
right. It's an avodah. Preparing for the Seder is a tremendous avodah, and the reason why that famous picture on the survival kit for Pesach, which is one of my just really favorite pictures.
What's called the Haggadah for the survival Haggadah, right? Yeah.
The survival kit, whatever, the Pesach survival kit, whatever it's called. But it's got a picture on the front cover of, a kid with his eyes rolled into his head, another kid playing Game Boy, another one holding the Haggadah upside down, somebody's sleeping. And that's, it's like so typical.
You're not supposed to sleep at the Seder?
Yeah.
Oops.
But some of the things you're going to say, I could never say them to you. But when you say them, yup, that's right. But you don't want your Seder to be that way. What do you want? What do you want to feel at the end of the Seder? So one of your brothers said it so beautifully. Just listen to David's thing. Said
right. So just as an opener into this, and I think we'll start with this, but the opener is there's the goal of where you want to get, but there's also the things you can do to get there. And I think that what I did was, I thought this was fun, is I asked my siblings to all send in, and a bunch of them did, to send in what they liked and what they enjoyed, what they saw from the Seder. So I want to sort of play them to us and react to them and talk about why those are important. Each one give each one its due.
Right. While you're looking for it, I'll just tell you.
Just got to get the face ID on there. Okay.
I'll tell you that for me, the launch pad of the Haggadah, no matter what theme you take, the launch pad of the Haggadah is the name of the middle part of the Seder. Magid. Magid, we always translate as to tell over, and we launch into a discussion about Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, and we're telling over the story, and we got it to Lebincha, and all of that beautiful stuff. But there is another explanation of the word Magid, and the word Magid comes from the word La'aged, to join together, to bond, and that's really what we're trying to do with the Seder.
No matter what theme you're bonding, no matter what your discussion points are, it's to be ma'agid, it's to bring everybody together. And just as a footnote on that, as I feel that every year, as my brother will say, but every year at the end of the Seder, there was a broness. You felt like a brother and a bro to everybody at that Seder, no matter who it was, no matter what they were doing and how involved they were. You made it through. You were be'igud. You were connected to everybody, and that's no matter what the discussion was. Again,
the goal is to be ma'agid the people to each other, your children and grandchildren to yourself, and to be ma'agid everyone to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And if you hit those goals, you walk out with that sense of broness, and just that sense of connection to God, like you're buzzed with God, and you're buzzed with being Jewish, and I know that sounds like so about Jewish, but being Jewish and being so proud of being Jewish, that's something from the thickness of our payas down to our toes that we have to achieve. We have to feel part of this am, part of this nation, part of this people in a very profound way. And if you accomplish that at your Seder, you've done everything you need to do. And that has to be from the onset, from the get-go, that's got to be your goal.
Right. It's a daunting task. It's like Shabbos. It's a Shabbos table on steroids because the expectation is there as well. A Shabbos table you can get away because you can, I'm tired. It's all week, and this is once a year. You have one chance. The expectation is there, but we're not. Again, I don't want to. I have never made my own Seder, so I'm still in the stage of reaping and gleaning from the ideas. But what we're trying to present is, yes, the expectation, but a set of tools and a toolbox that you too can recreate this. And for anybody who was at our Seder, I want to point this also out, this is not a time thing, right? We're not saying, and I feel like this disclaimer is important. It's anybody who's been at our Seder goes till the wee hours of the morning. And one would say that's a Seder. You're not Makayim a Seder until you've gone till 3:00. And it doesn't have to do with that. And it's not a time thing. You can do this quickly if your kids are not engaged and you're not engaged and just not going to work because of the circumstances to stay up until 3:00 in the morning. That doesn't mean that you can't get where you need to. And these tools and tips and things and ideas that we're going to try to present here today and in the following weeks, hopefully, will be tools that you can use at any speed, any tempo, and you can do it. It is not, that's that. I think that's an important disclaimer here as well.
You know why mitzvahs is such a challenge? Because they're mitzvahs. Because they're a tzivui.
Right. You have to do it.
And once you have to do it, the Yetzer Hara goes kicking in. That's why Godel Mitzvah Vayisa. A person who's commanded to do something gets greater schar than a person that's not commanded to do something, because a volunteer, and you would think intuitively that a volunteer is much greater, but the truth is a person who can rise against the challenge and actually still do something for the sake of doing it, that's considered a great thing. By Avraham Avinu, it says, God says to him, Lech lecha me'arzcha, and then, and everybody says, wow, Avram was such a giant, he listened to God. Shkayach, look at the next pasuk. The next pasuk says you're going to make $1 billion. Right. I'm going to make you into a movie star. So who wouldn't have followed God? No, the godless of Avraham Avinu was that even knowing the fact that he was going to reap all these benefits, he did it l'shem shamayim. And that's really the challenge of the Seder. You know that you have a responsibility, you have an obligation, and because of that, the pressure mounts and all the feelings. Relax. Just know what the goal is. Know the goal is to achieve this, but don't focus on that goal. Don't go crazy about the goal. You will achieve that goal if you are loving what you're doing, if you don't see the Seder as a burden. If you see the Seder as a burden, so then I guarantee you your children will see it as a burden. And you can play all the games. You can dress up like Paro in pajamas. You can do everything. You can get a stick of Moshe, and you can do all kinds of crazy things for your kids. And it's going to be ho hum. What are we doing, Dad? Because you got to do it with absolute love, and it's not love to because you want to teach them. It's because this is what you want to experience yourself, and if you're experiencing it, they're experiencing it. Allow me to tell a little story. And this is certainly from my perspective, but I think that my kids will agree. One year, it just got into my head, this thing. We were sitting talking to the kids, and we had a very, very precise system of the way that we did the Seder, and we would do. Well, my kids have a little bit of a different interpretation of this, but we would
revisionist history here. Yeah, okay.
We would get to Manishtana, and then after Manishtana, this is less Mandapolik. After Manishtana, we would then turn to the kids, and the Seder became the kids, talking the story, telling over the story, singing songs, playing games as they were getting older with the grandchildren, and the fact that there were more games in the world when the grandchildren were there. So I would buy all kinds of stuff, and we just have a blast, and it was exciting and wild, and it was a little out of hand, but it was sort of controlled out of hand. One year, I looked at the kids. We had a lot of kids at the Seder, and I said, "Okay, is everybody ready to leave Mitzrayim now?" And all the kids, yeah, we're ready. So I got all the kids up, and it was a line, and I made them into a line, and everybody took something, put it over their back, and we were walking out, and I'm describing what they're going through as we're walking through, and then we get to the sea, and I said, "Oh my goodness!" And I described the whole dilemma of the Jews with the Egyptians behind them and the sea in front of them, and how dangerous it's going to be, and oh my God, we're in so much trouble. Oh, and some of us should daven to Hashem, and some of us should want to go back to Mitzrayim, and some of us are going to want to do this. And then I said, "Oh my God, guys, look, it's unbelievable. The sea is splitting." I turned to one kid and I said, "Do you see it?" And the kid looks at me and goes, and I believe they did. Because it was just, I was totally, completely out of my mind, like totally into it. And the kids and I was feeding off of them. The more into it they were, the more into it I was. And we walked through, and then we turned around, and I said, look at the Egyptians. Wow, look at that helmet, and look at that chariot over there. Oh my God, that horse is going up and down. And I was just describing it. When I finished, I looked at the kids and I said, wow, Wasn't that unbelievable? Look what just happened to us. Guys, what do you want to say to Hashem? And Kimat, Ki ish echad b'lev echad, they said, thank you, Hashem, long before it was a movement. And they said, thank you, Hashem. And I felt I could go to sleep. I didn't, of course, but I felt.
I didn't remember that part.
I felt that that was it. We reached the place that we needed to reach to. The kids, and they were into it because I was into it, and I was into it because they were into it. And I think that's, if you want to kick around stuff in your head, that's what you have to find to pull out of yourself. Whatever theme you're going to do, but you have to be naturally. It can't be something that is put on, but it's something naturally that you're into it.
Right. I don't think this is pretentious at all to talk about this, because I think that you put in years and years of work, and you've seen the benefits. And as we'll hear, we hear that people are inspired. I know for myself, the basis of my faith and the basis of my emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, comes from, the Pesach Seder and Ne'ilah. And those are two important things. So to talk about and to sort of try to break down and deconstruct the process with which we created that, whereas you were the creator and I'm the receiver, I think that's important. So it's not that we did it and we did it right and there's no other way, but that there's something right here that we did that I think we want to bring out.
Right. I feel like I've created creators. In other words, that when some of you are already doing your own sedarim, and others of the kids are going to get there, when they kick me out. But that you have all picked up this theme and this idea that it's all about la'aged, to draw us together to each other, to God. Like it's a purpose.
Okay, so let's listen to some of these. I hope you enjoy them. I don't know if you heard them before, but enjoy them, and let's talk about them. Let's see why these are important, without psychoanalyzing the sayer, why they thought these were important.
Right.
I always like the one that Daddy says to break the afikomen in half and put the bigger half away for afikomen. How can you do that? If you break it in half, then there's no bigger part.
So Mommy left something out of that. And what Mommy left out of that was that the bracha rishona of that sentence, which was my father Olav Shalom always used to say.
Right, and the bracha rishona on the bracha rishona is, my father always used to say that his father always used to say that, how do you break? And you would say this joke, this bedicha, every year without fail.
That's it.
And I again, for us, is important the consistency, the continuity, the consistency of saying the same thing every year. It's a really funny joke too.
Right. So if you're not watching this, if you're only listening to this, so then that was a crunched face and a sarcastic look. And it's true. I wasn't saying it to be funny, actually. It was actually a bracha rishona for me. It was to remind me that what I'm doing is I'm carrying on the Messiah from my father. And that there were two people that I learned how to run a Seder from, and how to live a Seder. It's not run a Seder, it's how to live a Seder. One of them was my Rebbe, my 10th and 11th grade Rebbe, Rabbi Yaakov Will, who wrote one of these Haggadahs, the Haggadah with answers, I think, or something. And when I read through it, saying, "Holy cow, that's what we lived. That's what we learned. We learned it from a Haggadah called Migdal Eder, which is the Mikros Gedolos of. We learned it inside
Of Haggadah, cool.
not in English sheets that he gave out. We learned. I still have my Mikros Gedolos here. My Migdal Eder, and we learned it like it was incredible. We spent months before Pesach learning it, 2 years in a row. That's where I got my initial mahalach, and then from watching my father sing Nishmas, from watching my father fear the Seder, and this reminded me that whatever I'm doing tonight, I'm carrying on his legacy.
So, You picked right. That was the reminder of that joke. Okay, let's do another one.
I always remember the Haggadah that Daddy would use at the Seder that he got for his bar mitzvah and he's been using for so many years. At this point, it probably has more wine and matzah in it than it does paper, than it does actually words. But that to me always showed so much life and so much usage that it was very real. I always remember
that again is a Masorah concept. It was a silver. I'm not sure if it's silver plated or real silver, but knowing my family's probably silver plated. But it was a.
Is it here? Do we have it?
Yeah, I just don't.
Okay, we can't find it.
I don't remember.
Accessible.
It could be behind there.
Okay, Seder. No pun intended.
It's a chic Haggadah. Yeah, it's not here. It must be over there.
Okay, we'll pull it out one day and we'll show. It's
a chic Haggadah, a famous artist, and it's a beautiful, very physically very beautiful Haggadah, and the pages, the artwork, and everything. The Arba Bonim, the Russia looks like Edward G. Robinson. I mean, it's really a great Haggadah, and I couldn't really use it because every year we had people I needed to say the pages and everything.
So you had to use
I had to use an art scroll along with it, but for the important things like matzah, like Kiddush, I mean, it was really like a Rorschach test, with all the wine that had fallen on. You look at it and you see what do you see inside that that pattern, and that was also to me, and even if I wasn't going to use that Haggadah, it had to be sitting next to me, because that Haggadah also reminded me that this is about taking the past and bringing the past. Now, I recognize that this is a challenge for people that don't have pasts.
Right.
It's a challenge. Just remember something, that you're creating the past for your children, and that you're starting it afresh. But that
you can use this story also of Zadie Wogi that he breaks the matzah in half and he says, "How can you have a bigger half?" Yeah, I could create the past. Yeah.
Right.
You're free to use the story.
Right. But your kids, when they have children, are going to remember their Zadie. They're going to remember their father, and that's that's an important thing to realize.
Okay, let's do.
For me, it's hard to pick one specific thing. So the thing that stood out the most to me over the years was Daddy's expression before the Seder, when everyone would finally sit down by the table and everything was all set up. The expression on his face that stayed there throughout the whole Seder was like a kid in a candy store that was about to get everything he ever dreamed of. That passion and excitement about the Seder and giving over Emunah and Masorah to his family and to his guests, I think lasted throughout the entire Seder and really set the tone.
So I'll take that one, and that's from my brother-in-law, Levi Hiller from Detroit, and it's interesting because a brother-in-law comes in fresh, and he's like, oh, there's already the system set up, and he came in, he also, I think a lot of the meaning in what he does also came from our Siddharim and from seeing that. And I want to just add to him, he spoke out and he said that you're a kid in a candy shop. It was exciting for you. And I think that more than what you said, it was how you said it and how you sat down, and that you sat down so excited. So that's something also that we can recreate. Get excited, read something, learn something, get excited to share. Don't excited to preach. It's not a preaching session. It's just excited. You can do everything in the way you sit down and the way you're excited about it. And that itself can teach so much. As like an addendum to that, or a footnote, is that I feel that the way you sat down to it was an avoda. This wasn't a class. This was an avoda. The same way that you see, the Baal Tefillah get up on Yom Noraim, the Shlech Tzibor, and him say Hineni, and he's really an avoda for him, that he's thinking and he's crying, that he's coming for the Tzibor, and he's gonna and he's davening for the Rebbeinu Shalom, please let his words come out, and you feel the avoda, you feel the service and the feeling that he has of service. I felt that way on Pesach, and I think that's what made an impression on me, and similar to Levi, that there was an excitement, there was an avoda, there was something going on here. What was happening? As we make fun, I was hardly up. in most of my life. Not long for long portions of it, but
if
I
you
felt
added
this.
every Seder together.
I probably made one.
Probably made one. But I want to say something else that there's another, and these are, we're trying to give little tips in all this fun. But I'll tell you another, I think, very important thing. You in your mind have a certain objective, but that objective of being ma'agid with your kids and everything, there is a certain simplicity to it also. That one of the ways to be ma'agid, one of the ways to bond with your kids is to that they should share your love about what you're doing, but that you should share their love and excitement about what they're doing. Every kid in the world
Very good.
comes home with a garbage bag.
Of projects, yeah.
And I say garbage bags.
Well, in Israel, it's with pastelina.
Yeah.
Gosh, if it hasn't made the garbage yet, then it should. Yeah.
It's it's some potpourri of projects. Some of them are good and some of them failed.
And some of them are chametz.
And some of them are chametz. That's right. Depending on what day school you send your kids to. But when they unfold their stuff and they come to the table with some silly plastic cup that's got 3 dabs of paint on it. Look what I painted. It's Picasso just showed you something. Michelangelo just showed you something. Wow, that's so beautiful. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to love that. That is so beautiful to make Kiddush out of that. Let me see what else you have. And that will make their lives, not just their Seder. That's I think
I feel like it's a tip not just for a Seder. It comes out Seder because you have the garbage bag, but
every Shabbos.
Parsha sheets and the books they bring home from school and everything. If you can get excited about it with them.
The more kids you have, the greater of a challenge this is. And the reason is because, especially if you've lived in the same place and send your kids to the same school, you're going to be seeing the same projects year after year. How many times can I see the Ushpizin? The same Ushpizin. The only difference is how many crayon colors they used in them. But it was the same picture. But it didn't matter. It was theirs. And when you make an u'an and avit, that's 50% of the game. You've been koning them. You got them. And that's a critical thing. Now, what about a Seder where you don't have any kids? Do the same thing. I'm not advocating you do a crayon project, but prepare something. A story, not a drasha, not an exposition, but a story, a song. A great story. There was once a fellow in our community, a beautiful, beautiful person. And one of the things he did at his Seder was he asked everybody to share a song from their past. And a song that they remember from their Pesach Seders. And it was cool. And at one of his Seders, there was a new lady that had been hanging around the shul, and she was, nobody really knew who she was, where she was from. She had lived in Yerushalayim for a while, in Geula, and then something happened to her apartment, and she ended up in America. It was a little bit of a funny story. We didn't really know who she was, but she came to shul every morning, and I started to notice that when she was davening from the English side. We didn't know. Well, we knew after that Seder, because when he asked everybody to sing a song, she started singing a Catholic hymn. And she was a missionary. And that's its own crazy story. But it was, get people involved. Get people engaged. Before Pesach, and not the era of the Seder, days before the Seder, tell everybody to come with something, some memory, some story, something. And when they tell it, you and not, and that is a bond. It brings everybody together. And when you bring people together, you're bringing them together under the title, the heading of Judaism, of God, of Torah, of Am Yisrael. And it's just that's the way you win at a Seder.
Okay, let's do the last one here from Brother David. And I think this is good that it's the last one that we have, but it also speaks to the end result, where you get to and where you can get to. Brother
Yaakov also, no?
Yaakov was making fun of the fact that, and I didn't put it on here to play it, but it was funny. He said that, where you gave the 45-minute drasha before Kadesh, that you're not giving drashas. Right. And there was also a lot of talk, like funny things that you would say every year, and we make fun of them. All these little things that you used to say, that I'm not God's policeman right before washing, that I'm not watching how much you eat, I'm not watching how you wash, I'm not watching anything. And these are like funny things, but I think that they're important also for us because that's the consistency and that's the Masorah that we're bringing on.
It's the Bracha Rishona. It was the
Right.
It was the,
And it will be for us as well.
Yeah.
So here's the last one here of these.
I always remember the sheer joy at the end of the Seder by the Shana Haba. The Shana Haba Yerushalayim, and it's sung and danced with sheer joy that really next year we're going to be in Yerushalayim.
That says it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I get emotional just thinking about it. And I mean, last year was, for everybody it was whoa, which is different. I shouldn't say whoa. It was fabulous. We had, Ahron and I were together, our families, the kids, no guests. And it was a gorgeous Seder. It was gorgeous. Sometimes you need volume a little bit so that, you can hide, but without the volume.
well, we thought that was the interesting thing about last year is that we thought that, it's only going to be long because we had 30 people at a Seder.
Right.
And last year we went almost just as long as usual because the energy brings you, the energy carries you. The kids were up the whole time and they were excited and there was no other kids for them to play around with and to hawk with. And it kept them engaged because of these things that we're talking about.
Right. I want to I think an important thing in all of this discussion, I'll talk about the end of the Seder in a second, but I think the important thing is to realize, and maybe we need to flesh this out a little more so that people are clear about this, but when, our kids are involved, and that always flipped me out that the kids would stay, from 7 or 8 already, they would be up, or maybe they would fall asleep a little at, in the middle of the Haggadah, but they would wake up for the matzah, and they were, there were kids that were not every one of them, but there were kids that were always engaged, and it was, I would say that it was a kid Seder, but it wasn't a kid Seder in the sense that we said every paragraph, we darshaned on every paragraph, we explained what the paragraphs were doing in the Haggadah. The kids understood, some didn't understand, some they sat, they listened, they didn't listen, but they were around. But it wasn't the one thing that I think is very important, that we don't change the Seder because we have to impart a message to our children. We incorporate that in the Seder itself. So just as a very simple piece of advice, just reiterating what we did, we went up until after Manishtana, we sang Avodah Mayinu, and then I would say to my adult guests, and sometimes I had 50 guests at a Seder, and I would say, okay, everybody should, pay attention, be part of this, but now we're going to focus on the kids. And we gave them what they would need from Seder, and it wasn't an hour, it was 15, 20, maybe a half hour if it was gelling. So then, it would be that. And then we would tell them that they can now go look for the Afikomen. And
that was the transition.
That was a transition. And then we went back into the Haggadah. And most of the kids that we've ever had didn't need to steal the attention. They were happy being part of the whole thing. If you have a kid that needs to steal the attention, that's maybe this, we need to talk about that. But if, in general, when a kid doesn't need to steal the attention, he's happy just to participate and to be part of it and to be brought into a discussion. Me would ask, what's that? And we would explain that to her. And great. And she was happy. And then we'd continue on with the Haggadah. You can't leave the matbeya. You can't leave the formula that were given to us by our sages, because that's how we get to the place that we need to get to. But it has to also be sensitive to having the kids involved. The end of the Seder was very critical to me. I had watched this from my father, not necessarily the dancing at the end of the Seder, but I had the nishmas and the gusto of the end of the Seder, and the value and importance at the end of the Seder. And I get emotional when I talk about it, and I get emotional when I experience it. The dancing, that expression of what's the whole purpose of this? The whole purpose of this is L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim habnuya. And the one of the stories in the Haggadah is of the rabbis that are sitting around in Bnei Brak, and their students come to them and say, it's time for Kriya Shema. Right, Kriya Shema Shel Shachar. So there's about 1 billion pshatim of why they didn't know that it's not rocket science. You look outside, you know that it's sunrise. So how did they not know? Because they were Roman occupation, they were in a cave. All that's great. If you look at it homiletically, they were saying it Kol Eisa Laila. They were saying it during that Gullus. They were deep in Gullus. And by the end of the Seder, their students turned to them and said, Rabbi Seinu, Higias man kriyas meshel shachar. We see with our eyes the dawn is coming. We see with our eyes the Geula. And that's the way I feel at the end of the Seder. And that's the way I hope that the people that are with me feel at the end of the Seder. That we can almost touch it. We can feel it. That the Geula is on its way. Last year, we talked about this a little bit today, but last year, it was on steroids. It was in spades that I felt this at the end of the Seder. Because in the middle of the Seder, I think it was 8:30, whatever it was, they put out a call that because it was a Corona Pesach and people were going to be separated from their families and people were flipping out about it, that they asked, they encouraged people to go out to their mepesets and to their porches and at a specific time and to sing Manishtana together. We live in a place that's not particularly religious. A lot of the people around in this part of the neighborhood are not necessarily religious. You could look into their houses. There were televisions on. There were Zoom screens on. And you could see, they were doing Zoom Seders. At 8:30, on every merpeset, there was a person, a family, standing and singing together, Manishtana Leilazeh. When we finished Manishtana, remember what we did? We started Vihisha Amda,
yeah.
And people stayed and sang. And that, I tasted the Geula. It was palpable that this was Klal Yisrael standing together and singing Manishtana V'hi sha'am lavasenu, v'hi sha'am lavasenu. It's this that has stood by our forefathers and why we're still here and we haven't been obliterated and we keep going on year after year and that we're going to march this way together. We're going to keep marching towards the Geula. I think that those feelings, if you experience them, and that's the way you end your Seder, not end your Seder with, oh my God, it's so late. Let's get out of here already. Hallel. Oh, there's a Nirtzah. There's another part to the Seder. Oh, no. No, but with gusto, with excitement, because this is the part that talks about the Geula, the redemption coming. Chad Gadya. The song is not a song. Chad Gadya is a tefillah. It's a recitation of Jewish history, and it's a prayer. Chad Gadya, the one goat. The Zabin Abba Bitrezuzeh that father bought with 2 coins. Who's the Chad Gadya? The Jewish people. The Zabin Abba that the Tata bought. God bought us. Bitrezuzeh with the 2 stones, with the 2 tablets. Chad Gadya, we are his Chad Gadya. We're his special kid. And then we tell our history. Enemy after enemy after enemy after enemy. And then in the end, V'asa Kadosh Baruch Hu. And God comes and saves us from everything. L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. When you end the Seder that way, on that note, with that kind of energy, and you feel that sense of I can smell the Geula, that's when you know that you have been ma'aged yourself to the people around you, and all of you together to the Master of the universe. And that's the goal of what we're trying to do on Pesach.
Amazing. So I would say that's the goal, to reiterate that. And this session, this podcast was the different ways to get to that goal, the different little things you can add, and the important things to add in. Next week, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach, we're going to give like practical, maybe a theme or multiple themes. We'll speak about those and elaborate on those. We're going to give a little bit of like a toolkit, and we're going to give a little bit of vertlach and things that you can actually take to your Seder. Again, in this way of discussing them and bringing them out, but it's going to be a little bit more focused on how to. I would say also that anybody who does need specific help, or they have a specific issue at home, or specific, be it a child, be it a guest, be it a relationship, be it in-laws, be it somebody who's going to be there that's going to, you think is going to add a monkey wrench to the whole thing and you're not going to be able to do it, reach out, not to me, but reach out to us so that my father,
To the Father.
to the AKA the Father, so that he'll help you, he'll guide you. If he'll get on the call with you and he'll help you to navigate that, because it's not a one size fits all. This is something that everyone can do, and it just needs to be tailored. It needs to be worked with your specific situation. But we are not just two fat men with a microphone. We're actually trying to create something here and create and help you. So reach out to us at intentionaljew@gmail.com. We will direct your email. We'll set up anything that needs to be set up, because that's the idea here.
Amazing.
All right. Don't pass the cholent.
No,
That's worse than cholent. That's worse than Wednesday cholent.
yes,
Now you're talking. Shkoyach.
Shabbos Kodesh.